Today I am exploring in the Durango, Colorado area. There's a few things I want to do on this visit. No, I will not be taking the Durango and Silverton narrow gauge railroad, but this town has plenty more to offer, and just the surrounding scenery of the San Juan Mountains is fantastic. I have driven a good ways north of town to the James Ranch. It was established back in 1961 and is now quite the operation. They do have a market and grill, so I am gonna get some lunch at the grill. Yep, me too. From my understanding, the food here is all sourced from their own farming and cattle raising. It's actually farm to table, and yes, I could definitely tell. This was among the best burgers and especially potato fries that I have ever had. It's very fresh and delicious. A lot of the seating is outdoors in the yard, and there is a spectacular view of some mountains. All of this is grazing land for the James Ranch cows, and there are indeed a lot of cows out there that you can watch while eating their predecessors. Ah, this place is great. They also have some baby goats. Tiny goats are notably adorable, and that is certainly true here. Just look at these little guys. Well, I love the James Ranch. I would highly recommend stopping by here, and will be returning in the future. The train is returning to Durango. That is the Durango and Silverton narrow gauge railroad. It looks like they have reopened after a closure due to track repairs and then the COVID pandemic, so that's great to see. The Durango and Silverton narrow gauge railroad should be passing by in just a few minutes, so I'm gonna leave a penny on the tracks so I can get a train smashed penny. This is a very historic 45-mile rail line between Durango and Silverton, first built in the 1880s to transport gold and silver ore from the mountains. The train still runs, but it's more of a historical experience now. It is not transporting silver ore, and I do hope to take this trip someday. And here it comes! There's the smash penny of the historic Durango and Silverton narrow gauge railroad. So I have my own penny crushed on the famous Durango-Silverton Railroad. Heading into Durango, there are some cool vintage motels. I have stopped off at the Durango Wildlife Museum and Fish Hatchery. This is supposed to be a small wildlife taxidermy museum, but unfortunately it turns out to be closed. This sign on the door says it's closed for the 2020 season. It turned out that it was closed for the 2021 season as well, which sucks. But at least there's a sculpture of an elk. Well, since that's closed, I'm gonna do part of the Animas River Walk here in Durango, right alongside the mighty Animas River. I hope I pronounced that right. Some people didn't like how I pronounced it the last time I was on the Animas. I hear the train pulling into town finally. Here is the railroad trestle bridge that the train just passed over. I wonder if this is original to the 1880s. There's a fancy Victorian gazebo. Technically up here, we're a little north of Durango. It is now part of Durango, but this used to be recognized as a separate town called Animas City. Here along the Animas River Trail, I have stumbled across White Rabbit books and curiosities. There's all sorts of interesting curios in this window display. Turns out this is a little hidden used bookstore with a bookcase ladder, which I think is pretty awesome. This place definitely has an emphasis on fantasy and sci-fi books, and even has some related curios, but they do have a little bit of everything packed inside this little one-room shop. There's a good deal of Harry Potter references here at the White Rabbit. There's a mini Zoltar, and I don't even have to give him $1.
Hear your fortune from Zoltar. Remember, it is a great deal better to do all the things you think you should than to spend the rest of your life wishing you had.
The White Rabbit doesn't shy away from the paranormal or aliens. I do like that old Disney Alice in Wonderland clock. I also appreciate the sass. It's labeled as the fiction or alternative facts section. And here's the dystopian literature / current events, depending on your level of optimism. This was a pleasant surprise. It's a very cool place and worth checking out. And I did purchase this fancy hardcover of Kurt Vonnegut's Welcome to the Monkey House, which includes the Tom Edison's Shaggy Dog story. I have never seen a Vonnegut book look this bougie. There is also a little cairn garden at the White Rabbit. There's some rafters going down the Animas. I have arrived in historic downtown Durango, Colorado, and I'm just going to take a walk around. My favorite building here has to be the Strader Hotel. This gorgeous building was opened in 1887 and has quite a history. It was basically a winter home for the silver miners up in Silverton, who took the narrow gauge railroad back down here to Durango. It has also been at the center of an archaeology-related international incident, prohibition bootlegging, and more. I do want to explore this place more thoroughly at some other point. I do like the googly eyes on the horse. And this is the historic General Palmer Hotel. The Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory started right here in this building. This is the original store. And this is the Palace Restaurant, a historic restaurant at the site of the former Palace Hotel, and sadly the restaurant has permanently closed down. Since the pandemic closed things, stopping all the tourists from coming, that apparently did it in, and it closed in 2020. Luckily, I did dine here in January of 2020, in its last couple months of operation. It was great, so I am very sad to see this beautiful restaurant abandoned and empty. Hopefully someone can still move in and restart the restaurant. This is the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Station. It is the original station from 1882. I'm not going to be seeing the inside, as I am not doing the train on this visit, but one day I will. I'm going to ride this train. Here's the Gaslight Cinema. Downtown Durango has some great old buildings. It's very fun to walk around and see the architecture and artwork. This is one of the more controversial things in Durango, known as the Chief sign. This sign was made in the 1950s for the Chief Diner, which based on this old photo looked amazing. I wish that were still here. This would have been a neon sign for the restaurant. The Chief was outlined in neon, and his pointing arm would move. It was powered by a washing machine motor, so sadly that mechanism no longer works. Now this is a cartoonish caricature, and recently has been subject to some controversy. Still, it is an interesting relic of roadside history. This is, or was, the Durango Cannabis Discovery Center, which was like a cannabis museum that of course also operated as a dispensary, but it appears to have closed down. This is the El Rancho Tavern, where Jack Dempsey won a famous brawl. Yeah, Durango is great. Even if some things are closed, there is definitely a lot to do here. A few miles southwest of Durango is Lake Nighthorse. It looks to be a spectacular lake. I was hoping to get closer, but it is a paid recreation area, and I don't want to pay those fees just to look at it, so I'm gonna have to view from the road. So I had a great time in the Durango, Colorado area. I hope you enjoyed the various locations we visited. If you enjoyed the video, then please like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot. Also, I do have a whole arsenal of videos featuring other towns, roadside attractions, museums, national parks, and much more all across the country. And thanks for watching.